All right, we are live, Kyle. How's it going?
Doing all right. Friday afternoon. Looking forward to starting the weekend here.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we were just chatting backstage in terms of the live stream world about how on a recent Joe Rogan experience, Tom Green was a guest on there. So I was saying, um, Ed McMahon would go on the Tom Green show, and Tom would chat up. So Tom, I don't know if you ever saw the Tom Green live show before. Like he was
Never.
doing streaming like way back in the day. It's actually a really, given what we're doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually an interesting interview to listen to because Tom Green, like 15 years ago, was getting into home interview production. And so he was talking through like basically turning his living room into a television studio, but for internet-based stuff. And that's how Joe Rogan actually first got the idea to do his show was through talking to Tom Green. But so Tom Green had Ed McMahon on, and Ed McMahon was saying, "Hey, there's a hallway, and to go to the living room," and so they would be in the hallway. Tom Green would be chatting with Ed McMahon in the hallway, and Ed McMahon said, "Don't leave it all in the hallway." And his saying for, we'll have the chat on the show instead, which I guess is what they did on the Tonight Show. It was not leave it in the hallway.
I could totally understand that. You want it to be authentic when you ask a question, right? If I already asked you backstage how your wedding went, and now I'm going to ask you again on live TV, it's going to be hard to recreate that authenticity of my reaction and
right
my facial expression, all that stuff. So it makes perfect sense. So I'm glad you and I hadn't talked about any of this stuff ahead of time.
No, this is totally random. So for the one person that is watching right now, I see you. Although I don't know if I get a count for the people that are watching via Facebook, and I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I was like creating the live stream and I clicked on my Facebook as well. So there could be people on my Facebook watching. And I thought that might be cool because people on my Facebook can drop in any sort of comment, totally random. So this is meant to be, I called it AMA with Buu and Kyle, totally random. Very random, as in like I asked Kyle to join me on this like a couple hours ago, basically. And for those who saw the thumbnail, I will pop up that thumbnail. Hold on. Oh, I lost the thumbnail. Let me put it up here. Here it comes. Here it comes. This thumbnail. Should I pop it up for a little bit longer? This thumbnail. I mean, if anybody's listening right now who wants to drop in a comment, please drop in a comment on how long you thought it took for me to create this thumbnail. Was it 3 hours? Was it 2 hours? Less than an hour? And by the end of our time here, maybe I'll share with everyone how long it took me to make that thumbnail.
It's a good little teaser for our single viewer.
Yeah. No, we're up to 2 now.
Oh,
yeah.
Excellent. And when you get comments on Facebook, do they come through the StreamYard? Do you see them here, or are they just on Facebook?
Yeah, I see them on here. Awesome. And then I'm able to pop them up onto the lower bar there. So hopefully someone does leave a comment and interact with us, because this is meant to be an Ask Me Anything. So maybe I'll share with everyone what I think the premise of this is, and you can share with people what you think the premise is. There is, I think, an opportunity that we can have to just interact with people more. And maybe there are dying questions that people have that they want to have answered around the world of F5. And when I do things like my weekly update, my newsletter. That's really one way. So it's me telling you what's happening in the world of F5, but I don't really have a way to facilitate. I mean, people can email me back, but it's not like a live way of facilitating stuff that I can answer in video form. And then there is my other two things that I do. So there's a Buu's Hour Cloud Edition and technical show. And so that's interactive, but the subject matter is usually based on the guest. And so you'd have to ask questions about that scenario or that guest or that subject. And then the community edition is also factored around a guest. And so any question is kind of in the context of that guest. So my intention for an Ask Me Anything is, hey, now I'm here. You can ask me anything. And anything goes. But you can have your own idea for this, Kyle, and I'm totally up for doing whatever during the next 25 minutes.
Yeah, I think I didn't really have any specific ideas coming into this either, but I think your description of just having a venue to ask questions is perfect, right? If it's for F5 related, great. If it's just IT related, great. If it's something's just specific to sports or restaurants or pizza, then definitely something we can talk about.
Yeah. So this will go on my YouTube this week. In 24 hours, we'll be able to put this also. We'll be able to broadcast this to your YouTube as well, which is
right.
a pizza-based YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
I don't know if that's revealing too much right now, or if the cat is let out of the bag.
No, I was filming a little bit of a teaser trailer earlier today that I hope to release before the day is out. But I have a little bit of work to do on it still. But you're absolutely right. I've been working on putting a show together for. It's kind of a nice mix, in my opinion, at least. Whether or not it's received by the audience as such, we'll see. But it's a nice hybrid between a show that covers the local pizzas, rates those local pizzas, and then we also talk about cybersecurity with a guest. So it's a lot of fun. I've filmed one episode so far with a former colleague of mine. It turned out really good. We had a lot of good content. We had a lot of fun, and we rated a local pizza place here in Calgary. So we had a good time, like I said, and it's one of those things that I'm curious to see where it can go, and if it's going to indeed provide any significant value or feedback to the community, which is what I'm hoping for. So that's kind of where we're at, and definitely, like you said, if we can stream this to my my channel. It's called A Slice of Security in the future. Here, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Let me put a banner in that here. Oh, look, I already have this banner. Let me edit another banner.
I don't have the vanity URL, unfortunately, yet. I got a ways to go before I get that.
You gotta earn that one. That was me peddling the channel for weeks to get up to 100 subscribers. Is it A Slice of Security or a Slice of Security?
A Slice. Or yeah, specifically, you're asking about the YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Let me double check. I should know this.
There we are. So we're up to 3 viewers right now. I'm really sorry about the quality of the topics that we're going to talk about today.
What are you apologizing for? This is going to be great. We have lots of good topics.
Yeah. So things that we can chat about. I was thinking CrossFit and the demise of CrossFit. Maybe. Subjects that I like to talk about: investing and Tesla stock, and real estate investing, and F5 stuff as well.
So let's think about that for a second. We got a comment from Dennis I see there. Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah. Nice.
In terms of those topics, CrossFit, I've educated myself enough over the last week or so with all this controversy, but I've never been into CrossFit and I don't have much context around the broader movement. So I mean, if you can educate me further, that'd be okay. But I'm not super interested in that topic. I think what the people care about is how to make money. That's what the people want. That's a universally accepted and attractive topic. So Dennis is in our audience. I know he likes to make money.
Here's a way to make money. When your friend tells you that Tesla stock at $200 is a really good deal, and then you go sink a bunch of money into it, that's a great way to make money. Because what are they at today?
Well, they've been dropping, unfortunately. They were up to just over 1,000 per share, and now they're 935 over the last couple of days. They've tumbled. But still, right? I bought in, I guess similar to you. I think I bought in at 225 US or something. So I've quadrupled my money on that stock, which has been obviously great. Yeah. Makes up for the marijuana stocks that I bought in and never sold.
Yeah, when I look at so we've talked about this before, and other folks that know us have heard us chat about this before, but of my equity portfolio, only a small percentage is actually single stock. So anything I say as far as like stocks going up and down, people have to realize that's in the context of a sliver of a portfolio. So it doesn't actually really move the needle in a significant way for me. That's my preface to this. But yeah, any gains that I've made on Tesla have been nixed by unfortunate losses on Boeing. That was not a great one. What are they at today here?
Did they tumble, and they've continued to tumble since the Dreamliner fiasco?
Yeah, so I bought, I think, at a little under 300, and I was thinking at that time, how much lower can they go? They proved me wrong, so they got to about 130, I believe. I shed some of it at 150, got into Blackstone, and that's done well. So at least I have something that kind of recovered a little bit. Boeing's up to 190, 189 now.
Yeah,
so.
That's not bad. They were at their low here in the last 6 months was 95, I think. Damn.
Really? I didn't see that.
Wish I could have bought in at that.
That's a tough one. How are the cruise ships doing, I wonder? There's got to be an index for cruise ships.
I doubt there's an index, but that's actually not a bad idea. I think we know exactly like you say, right? They're probably at a low right now. Yeah. And they should rebound here pretty soon.
So I think Dennis is watching, but I think if we were to invite Dennis into the show, we would lose one of our two listeners. So
we can't do that. So I'm just looking at stock price for Carnival, who's one of the larger cruise ship lines. They typically floated in the 40 to 50 USD per share range. Of course, they've plummeted low here with $9.30 just 2 months ago, and now they're up to about $20. So they should rebound back to their 40, I would imagine, in maybe the next year. So I don't know. That's a reasonably safe bet, I think. Not that full caveat, I'm no expert, so
I'm gonna have to put up a banner here.
Yeah, let's do that.
Disclaimer. None of this is financial advice.
Thank you for doing that. Let's just talk. It's easy to talk about this stuff, isn't it? I wouldn't invest a cent right now myself, but in Carnival, for example.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me too. Although, I mean, I guess even in like the slivers of my portfolio that I do invest in single stocks, I probably still wouldn't do that because emotionally it's already tough to ride some of this stuff, I find.
Sure can be.
So other ways to make money, Tesla stock, that's a good one. I've told the story about meeting a guy. Told the story to some folks about meeting the dude at Supercharger that bought Tesla stock options and made $2.4 million on that. So that's a good way to make money.
It's a great way to make money.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I was approached by somebody not that long ago, maybe, actually it was a long time ago now. Sadly, time has drifted faster than I thought. It's probably about a year ago. It was somebody I knew, acquaintance. He wanted to recruit me into something, and he was very vague about it, to partner up in a business venture. And so I did my damnedest to try to get details as to what this was, and I couldn't. It was the strangest thing. All I knew was his coach or mentor became financially independent in his early 30s, and he kept touting that. But this friend of mine, acquaintance of mine, very respectable guy. Like I had a great impression of him at that point, so I had no reason to distrust him. So I wanted to kind of give it a shot. So I met with this mentor, and I don't know. It was just so vague and so non-specific that every alarm bell in my mind was going off and veering me away from that. So I did some of my own research. I don't know for sure, but it looked like they were trying to partner as part of this. It's sort of an MLM. It's not officially an MLM, but essentially where you do business and you sell different products on Amazon, and that seemed to be the gist of it. But I never got it from them. They just kept continually being vague, which was so frustrating. But it's interesting things like there's a lot of preying that people are willing to do on others, and some of these could be very successful ways to make money. Like in my case, I discredited because I had a bad gut feeling, so I went the other direction. Which, as some of you guys may be of the same mindset, you got to trust your gut, and this was one of those times for me. But I could have walked away from $1 million opportunity. I don't really know. Have you ever looked into any of those kinds of things, Boo?
Well, many of those have come up in my time. MLMs are never officially MLMs, and will always say they're not officially MLMs anyways, I guess. I have come across many of them, and the only ones that I've ever really seen people stick at are the ones where they don't have to continue to meet certain minimums to stick around, but at the same time they have really well set expectations at that point. It's like, hey, you're gonna buy the starter kit and you can continue to get the discount. What's the one, the cleaning supplies one?
ShamWow.
No, not a ShamWow. It's Epicure, I think.
Never even heard of it.
I think it's Epicure. One of those. This is cleaning supplies one, and that's one where you could just sign up and you could just, I think. So I don't know. Disclaimer. I'll also add this to the disclaimer. But you just get into the starter kit and you could just say, okay, I'm just going to buy every so often or whatever. The products are good. And then so we actually own some of those products and use some of those products. And a friend of mine is a dealer for them. And she'll just post on Facebook. Norwex is what it is. That's what I was thinking of. And she'll just put on Facebook, hey, well, I'm putting in a Norwex order, and we'll just grab a couple things every once in a while, and that's about it. No pressure. But some of the ones that do require you to maintain a certain clip level, those ones are the ones that are here. Dennis is correcting me. Epicure spices are the Epicure. I have some Epicure spices. The ones that are requiring you to maintain a certain minimum and stuff month to month, those are the hard ones, because at that point I get that they tout that, hey, you could do this part-time and stuff, but that's, if you're going to essentially maintain a quota, correct, then just, you could make way more money just getting a sales job with a quota. And there is a lot of freedom to sales roles, where you have more freedom around how you plan your time and whatnot. Anyways, that's my take on that. I take it you didn't go down the road of
no, I didn't. But there was a bunch of scenarios or encounters that I had around that same time that kind of reinforced that in my mind. And one of the things that I'm interested for any of the viewers that are out there, or even your opinion, Boo, I feel like a lot of these MLMs and these, historically what we would, I guess, would have called pyramid schemes, but I don't know, they've really put me on guard. So I'll give you an example. I was at, it was around Christmas time last year. My wife and my son and I were all at a store. We're looking at toys. And this other young couple comes over to us. They're really nice. They were, just very pleasant people from what I got. Like they were being very genuine, as far as I could tell. And it sounded like they wanted to become friends. And so as soon as they got to a point in that conversation where it seemed like they were being too nice and that they wanted to get to know us, immediately my guard went up. Immediately, to the point where I knew they wanted something. I knew that there was some kind of motivation behind what they were trying to accomplish here. And that was so frustrating. And it turned out to be exactly the case, where we can't just have a chance encounter with a group of people in a store without worrying that they're trying to sell you something, or worrying that they're trying to take advantage of you in some way. And so now,
what were they trying to peddle?
So again, it was one of those things where it was incredibly vague, but I believe it was actually the exact same product or offering that the other acquaintance that I met last summer was trying to peddle. Again, that's my guess, just based on the pitch and the approach that they took. They were very similar and vague. So anyway, I know this complaint is not unique to me. I see certainly my Facebook is splattered with, old friends or relatives that are trying to sell something, and I don't know. It kind of feels like it gets a little awkward when there's that kind of pressure all the time. And I know for me, like I said, my guard has become a little bit more. I guess it comes out a little bit quicker than I would like, because I'm always a little tentative around what people are looking for.
Yeah. I'm going to share something here. Can I highlight this one? Do you know who Kelsey Hightower is?
I do, yeah.
Okay, awesome. This is, I didn't realize that he was into fire movement, but I don't know if he would call it fire movement or if he just calls it minimalism. Practicing minimalism is the most liberating thing I've ever done. It put me in a position of financial independence and gave me a sense of self-detached from physical possessions and status symbols. And so and then I replied, being controlled by physical possessions that you voluntarily bring into your life is such a weird thing. And I'm not innocent. I have many physical possessions that I have bills for. But, maybe some of the people get attracted to things like MLMs, and I get side hustles. I totally get side hustles, but they get into that stuff for the attraction of some of the things that money brings you, and maybe adopting a minimalism attitude and not really over purchasing or anything like that will put you in a way better and happy spot, just like Kelsey's found there.
Absolutely. And I'll add a little disclaimer for what I mentioned. I certainly have nothing against MLMs or side hustles. Do you? But my advice to anybody who's doing that is don't make that everything you do. Your friends and your family don't need to always be inundated with your MLM or what you're peddling in that moment, right? I think it's important to have that delineation between keeping your friends and family and not necessarily making them feel like they need to be on guard because you're trying to sell them something all the time. There's a time and a place for that, and most of us are probably willing to help you out as we can, but maybe just keep that separate to some degree.
I kind of think through that with our roles at F5 too. Like we cover our local territories and we've been in IT for a while. And so we would have had previous relationships with people that we're now selling F5 products to. And, I absolutely never want to put any of my friends who my customers become my friends because I don't have any other coworkers besides, you and some other guys on our local team. So my customers become my friends. So I in no way would ever want to harm that relationship because, if you overstate the capabilities of something and all of a sudden that person's on the hook, I would feel terrible. It's a little bit different from an MLM. Somebody on an MLM may have purchased a whole bunch of stuff that they shouldn't have purchased to load up to meet their quota. But in the same respect, somebody's made a decision for their company that costs their company a lot of money for a product that doesn't do what was advertised. And I would feel awful if I was in that scenario.
Yeah, it's a very good point. There is an interesting parallel there. You're absolutely right. And that's one that I do try to keep separate as much as I can with friends and colleagues that may be in the same space. So theoretically, I could sell to them. But if every time I interacted with them, it was about, hey, this is what F5 has, this is what F5 can do. Surely enough, eventually they're not going to want to have anything to do with me because that's not a very genuine relationship anymore. So I don't mind engaging them in business matters, but certainly only when the time is right and when it's obviously about that topic. Try to keep them as separated as I possibly can.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if I know what that username is for M. Pijanowski full.
It's a mouthful.
If you can clarify who you are, I would love to know who that is. Maybe that's no. Can't think of who that might be. I don't know.
Guess we'll find out.
Yeah, other things that make you money. Real estate can make you money.
Yep.
Have you been looking at any purchases? Market is probably a little soft in Calgary right now.
So I haven't been looking recently, other than one property I looked at of pure curiosity because it's just very close to my place. I'm curious though. I think this may have been mentioned by you, but I don't know if I got a full answer. So the doomsday scenario for anybody who goes into the real estate business, at least as far as I can tell, as kind of an outsider, would be that you can't rent your properties. So pandemic comes along, people can't afford anything anymore. So how has this pandemic affected your rental units? And or has it, I guess, is my question.
First of all, this is Mirik. So, hey, Mirik. Mirik is actually one of Sylvan's good buddies.
Okay.
So that's awesome that you've tuned in. Maybe we can have Sylvan on as a special guest one day. So as far as my properties go, they've been pretty much 100% rented out. So my strategy, I'll share with everybody for how I invest in real estate. And so I'll also denote this is that people probably have this perception that landlords are these super rich people who have all the money in the world. That isn't totally the case. I started purchasing real estate very long ago and then just have accumulated more real estate because as the equity goes up, if people understand compounding interest in terms of equities, the equity in a real estate purchase doesn't actually compound unless you force compounding to it. There's compounding interest in terms of appreciation of the market, but there's a bunch of debt equity in there that you have to force it to actually compound. So you have to reinvest it. So that's how people, if they've invested in real estate a long time ago and you see them with lots and lots of real estate, it's because they had to force that. Otherwise, you'll actually get returns that are lower than the equity market. So going back to how my rents have been, everything has been filled up. The strategy that I have personally has been buying into properties that are not A class properties, but more of the B and C plus type properties. That's very specific because I feel like during tough times, A-class properties are the ones that people will be looking to shed because that's an extra thing, and they'll move themselves down into B or C-class properties if that's something that they need to cut, if living expenses is something that they eventually need to cut. I think I don't know, it's hard to say what everybody's situation is like, and it's hard to blanket how the market has been, but I think that what I've seen across the properties that I have, with not really a lot of people having to struggle with paying the rent, is either they just prioritized the rent and they made sure their rent was paid so that we wouldn't have any issues, even though there's safeguards for them from BC Housing. There's safeguards. They can apply for additional funding and whatnot. So it's either that or they just weren't financially affected.
Well, that's
so
great.
In a roundabout way, I think just buying things that investing in things that you know are going to be the ones that will always rent, even if it means that you didn't get to buy like the really nice fancy looking place with all the granite countertops and really nice floors and the nice exterior, but you bought something simple that it's always going to be rented because people always need a place to live, and at the right price point, anything is going to move. So that's worked out so far for 15 years.
Amazing.
Seen a couple downturns.
Well, if it's been that steady even in a pandemic like this, then that says a lot. When you talked with 5 a.m. Joel a few months back, or I guess maybe a month back, he specifically called out the quadplex as being the kind of choice property for him based on quite a few factors. I don't know if you mentioned that on your call with him, but I read that on his website. And it made sense why he specifically called that out, right? Because it's a single property. You don't have to get into commercial real estate. And you can only hope that as long as it's occupied by 3 out of 4 of the tenants, and it pays for itself still. Have you looked into quadplexes? Is that a common thing over in BC area? Because I'm not sure how many of those are actually in the Calgary region.
I haven't looked into quad there. Yeah, there's been a couple. If I put this on my Facebook, so if Dean's watching, then he's my go-to real estate agent, and so he's brought up a couple of those in the past before. The only challenge that I have with anything, so I buy townhouses. The only challenge that I have with anything that is a discrete house where you own land is having to maintain it, and so I'm not one that has enough time to go out and do any of the maintenance on there. And so if maintenance comes up, you do need to budget for it anyways. Like anybody who's investing in real estate, they're hopefully doing their math, and they're cutting aside funds for the maintenance of their property going forward. I'm not interested in doing all that stuff. I think there's money to be made in that, though. I agree. Like those are really ideal properties. If you can get multifamily, you own land, and there's inherent risk mitigation in having more units anyways. And so that's, when I got to and got a little bit past 3 properties, that's when I actually felt comfortable, because when you have 2 properties and you have 1 property vacant, that. And at that time, that was earlier in my career. So we're already saving as much as we can and cutting coupons and stuff. So having one property down and having to foot that mortgage bill for a month or whatever it took to get it rented out again, that's rough. But
That hurts.
having a quadplex, 3 of the units cover the whole thing, then that's awesome.
And you're laughing. Yeah. So that when I read about that, it kind of certainly struck a chord with me. I never really thought about quadplexes as being an option, and not to say that that's the option for everybody, but that something I've started to look into a little bit. So we'll see. That could be in the future for me.
Yeah. And would you live in one of the units?
That would be kind of best case scenario, I think, but probably inevitably not if I had to guess, just because.
So one of the scenarios is Joel, and if you listen to Bigger Pockets, I don't know if you've listened to that podcast or read their blogs, and it's not a uncommon term, but the term house hacking. The appeal around house hacking is mortgage insurance. So when you are investing in properties, you need to put down, for residential, you need to put down 25%. I think that might be 25% soon. Again, not financial advice, but from what I recall, I think it's 20%. When you're buying just for your residence, you can put down 5%, or in some ways you can work out a 0% down payment. And so if you're going to be living in the quadplex, then you could potentially put down 5% and live in it. And then the real money is made in real estate in the leverage. And so when you are buying at a 20-to-1 leverage, then that 5% that you put down is pretty awesome in how much it could potentially grow for you. And a lot of people don't get that too. Like the point of leverage in the whole point in investing in real estate is the leverage, because it's backed by a real asset that you can see and touch. A lot of people like the idea of buying properties that are paid full out in cash. And I respect why they would want to do that. It helps them feel more comfortable. Or maybe as you get a little bit older, you don't want to play the leverage game anymore. But leverage is totally the power, the way that you can multiply the money. And at that point too, where was I going with that? With a 20-to-1 leverage, you're in a really powerful position, but some people don't want to have 3 units living all around them as well.
That's a bit of a challenge. Yep. And then because we have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and I need a nice yard for all of the dogs and the animals and my kid.
Yeah, you need a zoo.
Yeah. So that's something where we need almost a dedicated space. So I can see your point from sharing that unit or living in one of those units would make the most financial sense likely, but may not be feasible. Before I forget, there's one thing I noticed about this, and this may be this is probably what the users see as well. But in the bottom of our screen, just below you and I, our picture, where it says Kyle and Buu, it's just a little off, right? Is that on purpose, or is that just the way it has to be?
Oh, that is. I'll show you right now.
Because I was watching when you went with Tanya, and it was just a little off, and it was bugging me.
The name tags, you mean?
Yeah, because it would be nice if it was flush with the corner of the.
So those are colored. So watch this. Does that change on your side?
Yeah, it changed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in StreamYard, you can actually pick that color. So I picked blue, and then when I have a blue background, then it looks like a notch is out there, but it's only because the background is blue.
You're mostly using that blue background though, so is there any way, I guess, going forward to not use that? I guess because that looks a little weird. It looks a little janky.
Maybe I'll do that.
Now it looks awesome.
Here's the thing: is that you pick one brand color. So that color is actually used in a couple other spots.
Okay.
And that's a good point, though. When it comes to branding, I have the one color basically going on. I'm going to set it back to this guy here. Yeah, that's a good point, though. I should think of how to manage that.
Like I said, it was annoying me looking at it because it just looks off center. But now that I'm looking at it and you've explained it, I understand what's going on.
Yeah. What does annoy me is my audio from Tanya, the live stream with Tanya. That was very painful when I discovered that.
Yeah. Well, I've sent that to Robin. Don't worry.
So
make sure to fix that.
I recorded myself into the pod. I turned all of the live streams into a podcast format. And so I recorded a bit of an apology ahead of the podcast. People can hear me sobbing into the microphone, begging for forgiveness because of the audio issues that we had. For folks who didn't watch that, although I got a lot of views out of that one comparatively. The live stream I had this week was with a woman named Tanya Jenka. She is a very well-known, for folks who aren't in this space, she's a very well-known application security advocate. She was formerly had an advocate role with Microsoft. On Twitter, if you want to measure things by numbers on Twitter, she's got about 30,000 followers or something like that. LinkedIn, I think she's up to like 30 or 40,000 followers on there. So in the tech world, that's celebrity status, basically. She's based in Victoria, had her on the live stream, and we talked through some stuff on there. And then after the live stream, I found out that my HDMI input that I had rebooted right before the live stream because something weird was happening on it. I forgot I entered this and I did not set my audio back to the HDMI capture card. And my audio was recording off of my laptop microphone the entire time, which was really sad.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest, it didn't sound awful, but it was absolutely nowhere near this quality right now. So it was unfortunate, but I'm sure everyone will forgive you.
We'll have to make it up for more guests. So next week I'll have Bayer Sai, and Bayer is I'll have two folks. So I'll have Josh Sordelay. Josh will be on the Monday weekly update, and on Tuesday's News Hour Cloud Edition, he is one of the global solutions architects for Equinix. Equinix just spent $1 billion on the Bell Q9 data centers in Canada, which is awesome. We're going to have a great chat about that. Nice. And then I got Bayer Sai lined up. And Bayer, for folks that know social media, they would know the name Hootsuite. Hootsuite is Vancouver based, and they have a social media management platform, and they're actually a good size employer in BC. I think they have 1,000 or 1,200 people employed in Vancouver. And now Hootsuite was actually born inside of a social media marketing company called Invoke Media. And Bayer was actually a software developer that they had employed in-house. And he created that platform himself. And it has become this $1 billion company at this point, and Bayer was the guy that programmed it at the beginning, and he stayed on with the company for 10 years. And he's gone off and done some other ventures. So I have him on Thursday. Super excited to be chatting with him.
Very good one.
As well. And hopefully I'll have good audio for that. But otherwise, it's been a good week. We've had agility this week. WAF 111, which was Kyle's lab, went off amazingly. Really well done. Great coordination on your side. So I commend you for the work that you did there.
Oh, thanks, Boo. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really, really feels good to have that over with, though. As much as that was fun, it was kind of looming over all of us. As some of you may already know, we had a session originally booked for agility in March. So all of us were preparing it for that eventual date in March and everything leading up to that. And as a result of the pandemic, of course, that got rescheduled. And so we had to now go in and re-prepare in a different way, not so much around the content, but around the delivery of that content. And so, yeah, we finally got to get it over with and release it out to the public and to the wild. And we had a lot of great feedback from our customers who attended. Yeah, it felt really good. And Buu was actually the MC on that particular lab, and he did an awesome job. And my colleagues were assistants and co-presenters on that one, and we had a great time. So yeah, I think all of us as the SEs and working for F5, we're probably all in a similar boat where we're happy it's over with. We had fun, but now it's time to move on to just focus on other things.
Well, I think the work kind of continues because I know for my customers, all 5 of you, probably not all 5 of you that are listening are customers, but for my customers, I do plan on offering the Agility Labs. Probably, I'm not sure what cadence we could pull it off in, to be honest, and like how many people I could manage on my own. I'd have to make it a finite amount of people that I could bring into a lab. But a lot of them can be self-guided too, which is awesome. But I think going forward, like I just love that we create all this stuff and we can actually use it going forward. So for all my customers who listen to the replay of this, just look out for future lab offerings pretty soon. Hopefully we can get to offering it really soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, the same for me in Calgary. I've reached out to most of the customers who intended to participate, and some of them weren't able to. So we're going to try to do something here locally for a kind of a agility recap of some of the more in-demand labs. We can go through those, kind of go through them as a group, perhaps, depending on how people want to do that, and just go from there. Because I know it's challenging for most people. Nobody's immune to it. Interruptions come up, new priorities come up. You're not actually at a physical event anymore, so it's easy for other things to take priority over that. So understandably, a lot of customers just weren't simply able to make the time commitment for all of the labs throughout the week of agility. So we're going to try to do our best to kind of bring those labs to you guys, as Buu just mentioned, and make sure that you have a chance to actually participate and enjoy some of that content, because some of these labs are awesome. A lot of people did some cool stuff. And yeah, I think we all probably look forward to sharing some of this.
See you, Dennis.
See you, Dennis.
Yeah, I gotta say the same. Like the labs, the WAF 342 one that we did with the declarative API for ASM is pretty awesome, and that tied right into my conversation with Tanya. How do we build, Robin says bye to Dennis. How do we build WAF policies into a pipeline? Yeah. So there it is right there. And we have a great example for folks. Now, for folks who don't want to wait to see the lab content delivered from one of us, you can actually just go to clouddocs.f5.com. I always send out this link everywhere anyways, but if you go to clouddocs.f5.com, look at resources, drop down for resources, and see you, Merrick. We will, you know what? We'll try to do this next week. Are you in, Kyle, for next week?
100%.
All right, cool.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so you go to clouddocs.f5.com, drop down resources. I think it's community and training, and then you'll see all the labs on there. All of it's public. You can just go look at the labs. I love this idea. It's just all out there. You don't have to pay the lab fee. The lab fee that you pay for agility is really because all the stuff has to get rented, and we have to pay for GCP is where the labs are essentially run on the back end. So there's cost to it. But if you just want to look at the materials, and a lot of people have the ability to build this stuff up on their own, then go for it.
Yep, that's actually one of the ways when I was first onboarded here at F5, I decided to go through a lot of the prior years agility labs, and because they were all up on Cloud Docs at the time, I was able to just spin them up in my own lab. And so anybody watching who wants to do that can do that exact same thing. There's nothing stopping you. Just spin up a virtual edition in the cloud. Maybe it's a pay as you go. Maybe you already have a lab license, and just play around, have fun, and learn.
Yeah. Super easy. Like, okay, so resources, community, and what have we got here? Here we go. Here's WAF 111. Look at that beautiful lab. Expected time to complete 2 hours. Oh, Robin's got a good memory. Kyle was forced to make an agility lab within 2 weeks of working at F5. I recall that.
Yeah, we had some fun, with some chaos at the beginning, but it was a good time. I got to work with Robin and another colleague of ours, Bill Brazil. We came up. Robin had done a lot of the work already. He's not giving himself enough credit, but yeah, we just came in, refined the lab, kind of put the final polishes on it, and delivered it. I think it was about 2 weeks after I started. Yeah, so thrown into the fire for sure.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I remember that. And Robin's lab was not just a big IP and a web server, if I recall. That was a pretty large lab.
Oh, it was overly complex. I hope the DNS team has revamped how many big IPs they deploy. But I think there was 5 or 6 big IPs, some of which were just functioning as routers. It was an extremely large lab environment, and it was fairly complex. So I was definitely learning a lot in those first 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's definitely trial by fire. But that was a fun time. We were in Boston, weren't we?
Yeah, it's my first time in Boston too. It was a great city. I loved it.
Yeah, I had so many lobster rolls there.
Yeah, lobster was good.
I think 2 out of 3 meals every day was a lobster roll. Those things weren't cheap either. They're like $18 US. So that's a good amount of money for basically a bun that was dipped in butter. Essentially, I'm pretty sure it was they just dipped the toasted bun in butter, and then lobster on top of that. That was good.
Yeah,
good time.
Absolutely.
Well, we went over a half hour by just a bit. Maybe we'll shut her down from here.
Yep.
You got any final words, Kyle?
Final words for me are for everybody to have an awesome, safe weekend, and to look forward to a brand new show coming at you next week. My hope is to have that published. It's going to be called A Slice of Security. It's an interview-based show with local cybersecurity resources here in Calgary, talking about not only cybersecurity, but we're actually going to be rating and reviewing a local pizza place. So, in my opinion, best of both worlds. Something I really love, which is pizza, and something I really love doing, which is talking about and learning about cybersecurity. So, taking those two things, merging them together, and having a good time. So that's the premise of this show, which I'll be sharing with you guys next week.
Nice, cool. I'm looking forward to that. I heard you've been busy editing away at that, so
yes,
I'm looking forward to seeing the final product.
Absolutely, it's made me much more conscious of how many times I use filler words like and and so having to edit those out of your content, as Buu is very keenly aware at this point, is very, for me anyway, because I'm not that familiar with Adobe Premiere at this point. It's very challenging. It's very annoying. So something I'm going to consciously work on.
It's helped me a lot knowing how much I do that. Now I'm consciously, when I'm recording any of the pre-recorded stuff, I'm very conscious about, if I say that's another edit that I have to do.
Exactly.
So I'm reducing my ums.
This is the best training anybody could have, right? Just learning that you can avoid this kind of filler word just by having to go through that edit process. So anybody who's trying to get rid of those words, record yourself talking, have to edit them out, and you'll hopefully revise your talking pattern in a short amount of time.
The pain will make you change.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Final words from me. Hit, if you're watching from YouTube, hit subscribe, probably over here. If it is red right now, you need to click it so it turns gray. There's a bell beside there so that you can get notifications when I go live. If you're watching from Facebook right now, I apologize in advance for all of the quasi-financial information that I gave you. Head over to the YouTube and hit subscribe as well. And otherwise, we will see you. You'll see me on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at this point. Awesome. All right. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.